like some of Jesus' disciples was like murderers. I just feel like it's my duty, like get my testimony, like God, like I'll be wrong. You feel me?
Right.
Yeah.
Man. But y'all see the crazy shit going on, all these earthquakes. I ain't like just in case though, y'all, man, y'all get right with God, man. Just in case there's a lot of biblical going on. I ain't gonna lie, I don't want to sound like no conspiracy.
On the evening of August 28, 2025, gunfire shattered the calm of a Hallandale Beach neighborhood. Within minutes, a young rapper's life was over, and it was taken not by an enemy on the streets, but by his own relative. The victim was 25-year-old Brandon Walmley, better known in music circles as Wham Spin the Bin. He was an artist who had battled addiction, endured the loss of loved ones, and vowed to turn his life around by putting his faith in God. But just months after publicly speaking about his journey to sobriety and redemption,
I feel like I was taking stuff for granted before. Like now I take everything a blessing. Like you feel me? Ain't nothing like guaranteed. So like everything you gotta take with a grain of salt. Like you gotta walk light. Feel me?
his story was cut short by bullets. Neighbors were called hearing a quarrel erupt before the sound of multiple shots. Brandon was rushed to the hospital, but the damage was too severe. By night's end, his family was grieving, his community was shaken, and the rap world had lost another rising star. This is not just a story about gun violence. It's a story about betrayal, loss, and the cool reality that sometimes the greatest danger comes from within. This is the life and death of Brandon Walmley. This saddening story unfolds in the Hallandale Beach area of Florida, USA. It's a vibrant coastal city framed by sunny beaches, tropical weather, and attractions like Gulfstream Park's racetrack and casino, all contributing to a lively and accessible atmosphere for both residents and visitors. In 2025, the cost of crime in Hallandale Beach was just slightly below the national average. Though generally considered relatively safe, Hallandale Beach came with its share of caution. Both violent crime and property crime presented risks above Florida's averages. It was in this city that Brandon would lose his life. Brandon Walmley was born January 28, 2000 in Florida. He grew up in South Florida neighborhoods where football offered structure long before studios and stages did. Sports shaped his early years. Discipline, teammates, routine, but his friends and family gravitated toward rap. Brandon too listened, watched, and eventually began recording. Family ties mattered to Brandon. His cousin Wiz was already carving a lane in the local scene. Through Wiz, Brandon met someone that would change his career. He met Kodak Black, one of Florida's most recognizable artists. That connection opened doors. Under the name Wham Spin the Bin, Brandon folded into Kodak's Sniper Gang orbit, turning early studio time into full tracks that spread through Florida's online music channels. By July 2021, he released a project titled Life Before Fame.
Again, get out there. A person could say, I'm talking all that God shit. People could say I could be a hypocrite saying that. But I ain't gonna lie, my music not gonna be promoting killing. I'ma talk what I like, what's going on, you
If
feel
it
me?
happened, it happened. But
Like, you feel me? Like,
A formal step from local momentum into a broader audience. He followed with Before I Self-Destruct in 2022, then Teardrops and Closed Caskets in 2023. Along the way, a collaboration called 444 featuring SCY Jim, Rice Sosa, and Mari Montana landed on music media radars in September 2022. Spotlighting Brandon's understated but forceful delivery and pushing him further into national conversation. Success and struggle ran side by side, and Brandon soon received very tragic news. Wiz was dead, and this loss weighed heavily on him. Brandon addressed how that loss and the loss of another close friend he considered a brother shook him. His coping mechanisms slipped into dangerous territory. In 2023, he overdosed and later described feeling like he had died and come back. After that scare, he told followers he was done with pills and syrup, and he repeated a message in 2024 during an interview that was going to be his motto for life. People dealing with pain and mental health challenges should avoid drugs and seek God. He said he was focused on health, money earned the right way, and giving back big goals like youth sports and positive projects, replacing old habits. His legal record was not a secret. Court and jail records in Broward County showed arrests that included cannabis possession, stalking, and issuing a written threat to kill. But to listeners, the music was the only important thing. He was still building, still posting, still touring the same local circuits that had nurtured him from the start. But Brandon's professional ties shifted over time. After his cousin's death and other internal turbulence, he pushed to leave Sniper Gang and, according to reports at the time, paid to exit his deal. He leaned into independence and into 00 Records, a name he associated with earlier plans he and Wiz had shared. But everything went wrong on a Thursday evening in late August. As the sun dropped, the Shot Spotter Network, an acoustic detection network that automatically notifies law enforcement when gunfire is detected, picked up rapid gunfire in the 500 block of Northwest 6th Avenue in Hallandale Beach.
Hallandale Beach police still on the scene Friday morning, searching for clues, going door to door, trying to solve a murder. Bullets flying Thursday night, and this guy says bullets hit his house.
So last night, anoche, you hear, right? Bullet holes. You live here. Boom, boom, boom.
He says, I took off and I hid in the bathroom because I heard way too many shots fired. It all happened on the 500 block of Northwest 6th Avenue. 25-year-old Brandon Wamley was transported to a nearby hospital. He passed away.
It was August 28, 2025 at around 8:30 p.m., and Hallandale Beach police were alerted almost instantly. Within minutes, dispatchers relayed the information and officers were racing to the scene. The urgency was unmistakable. Residents had already begun calling 911 in panic, reporting the sharp cracks of gunfire and the chaos that followed. Neighbors described hearing raised voices just before the shots, suggesting a heated argument that escalated without warning. Some recounted hiding in their bathrooms as the sound of bullets echoed through the block. For those living nearby, the fear was immediate and the danger felt too close for comfort. Despite the shots, the police were not prepared for what they found. Officers found 25-year-old Brandon Walmley, better known to the rap world as Wham Spin the Bin, lying critically wounded. He had been struck multiple times. Blood stained the pavement and shell casings were scattered across the ground. It was a very gruesome scene. Officers quickly secured the area, cordoning off the block with crime scene tape, while paramedics rushed in to provide aid. Brandon was transported to a nearby hospital, but the emergency medical intervention was not enough. Brandon Walmley was later pronounced dead. From the very beginning, police made a critical determination. This was not a random act of violence. Early evidence indicated that Brandon and the shooter knew each other, and investigators believed the confrontation was personal. It was classified as an isolated incident, meaning the public was not considered to be in immediate danger. But that didn't make the tragedy any easier to process. For Brandon's family and supporters, the reality was devastating. The man who had been fighting so hard to rebuild his life had been gunned down, and early findings suggested it was at the hands of someone he trusted. Detectives from the Hallandale Beach Police Department immediately launched a full-scale investigation. Their first priority was canvassing the neighborhood. Officers went door to door, speaking with residents who might have seen or heard anything connected to the shooting. Witnesses consistently reported hearing an argument before the gunfire, though the details of what sparked the confrontation remained unclear. Investigators also sought out surveillance footage from nearby homes and businesses. Security cameras were pulled from multiple angles in hopes of piecing together a timeline of events. Forensic teams combed the scene, collecting shell casings, photographing evidence, and marking bullet trajectories. The data from ShotSpotter gave them a precise timeline, narrowing the window of when the shooting had occurred. But while the physical evidence provided important leads, there was a challenge. As is common in communities impacted by gun violence, many witnesses were hesitant to come forward. Fear of retaliation and the cultural code of silence created obstacles for detectives, but the police did not give up. Police issued repeated public appeals, urging anyone with information to contact the department or submit tips anonymously through Broward County Crime Stoppers. Still, progress was being made behind the scenes. Detectives examined Brandon's circle of known associates, recent disputes, and potential conflicts that could have led to the shooting. His personal life had been marked by both struggles and resilience, battling addiction, coping with the deaths of loved ones, and striving for sobriety while building his rap career. As news spread online, tributes poured in from fans and fellow artists. Social media platforms lit up with posts mourning his death. Hashtags bearing his stage name trended as listeners revisited his music, highlighting his raw storytelling and reflecting on his untimely end. But beneath the mourning was a swirl of speculation. Who pulled the trigger and why? Hallandale Beach police confirmed early on that the suspected shooter was acquainted with Brandon. This was not the work of a random passerby or rival gang. Instead, the evidence pointed to a personal connection, possibly even a relative. That revelation stunned the community. Violence among peers in the rap industry was tragically common, but the idea that Brandon's life could have been ended by someone from within his own family circle was almost too much to comprehend. Investigators pursued multiple leads while maintaining secrecy about the suspect's identity. Officials stated that disclosing details prematurely could compromise the case. This silence only fueled speculation online, but law enforcement emphasized the importance of protecting the integrity of the investigation. Then, a new lead was about to be uncovered. Forensic evidence from the scene was processed to establish the type of firearm used. Investigators cross-referenced the findings with databases of registered weapons and prior cases. Meanwhile, analysts reviewed vehicle movement in the area around the time of the shooting, using traffic cameras and license plate readers to identify suspicious activity.
The neighborhood itself became a focus of surveillance. Officers increased their presence, both to reassure residents and to deter any potential retaliation. Detectives returned to the scene in the days after the murder, re-interviewing witnesses and checking for new security footage. Every small detail, from unfamiliar cars to overheard conversations, was treated as potentially significant. In the weeks following Brandon's death, police resources remained heavily invested in the case. Community pressure mounted as fans demanded answers and family members grieved openly. Finally, authorities moved forward. Based on collected evidence and corroborated witness accounts, police confirmed and identified a relative of Brandon's as the suspected shooter. The arrest brought both relief and renewed heartbreak. Relief because the community could begin to see justice take shape. Heartbreak because it confirmed what many had feared. Brandon's life had been taken not by an enemy on the streets, but by blood. The suspect was taken into custody and charged in connection with the homicide. Police reiterated that the shooting was the result of a personal confrontation that spiraled into violence. No further details about the motive were released at that stage, but the confirmation of an arrest shifted the case from speculation to prosecution. For Brandon's supporters, the development was bittersweet. Justice was underway, but the reality of who had been accused deepened the tragedy. This was not just a story of a promising artist cut down too soon, it was also a story of family ties shattered forever. As the case moved into the courtroom, the details of the confrontation that led to Brandon's death began to surface. Prosecutors outlined their argument that the shooting was the culmination of a heated dispute between the two men, one that escalated far beyond control. They emphasized that this was not an act of random violence, but a targeted killing, an intimate betrayal that unfolded in front of the community. Defense attorneys attempted to argue context, painting the conflict as a family matter gone tragically wrong. They suggested that emotions ran high, tempers flared, and the situation spiraled. But prosecutors reminded the jury that regardless of emotion, a choice was made. A gun was drawn, multiple shots were fired, and a young man's life was cut short. Evidence presented in court included forensic analysis of shell casings recovered at the scene, surveillance footage from the neighborhood, and testimony from neighbors who heard the argument just before the gunfire erupted. Witnesses described hearing at least 10 shots, followed by the sound of chaos as people scrambled for safety. Throughout the proceedings, Brandon's name carried weight. His career, his struggles, and his efforts to change were all part of the narrative. Prosecutors highlighted his recent turn to sobriety and faith, painting him as a man determined to leave his past behind. The tragedy, they argued, was that his new chapter was stolen from him before it could truly begin. The trial drew attention from across Florida. Rap fans, community leaders, and activists packed the gallery. Many wore shirts bearing Brandon's stage name, while others held photos of him at vigils outside the courthouse. After days of testimony and deliberation, the jury reached its decision. The relative accused of killing Brandon was found guilty. The judge, addressing both the family and the community, acknowledged the devastating impact of the crime. The sentence handed down ensured that the shooter would spend decades behind bars. For some, the verdict brought closure. For others, no amount of prison time could undo the loss or repair the wound of family turning on family. News of the conviction rippled through Hollandale Beach and beyond. For Brandon's family, the trial had been a brutal process, reliving the details of his death while sitting just feet away from the man accused of ending his life. Family members spoke of heartbreak, describing how difficult it was to reconcile love for one relative with grief for another. Brandon's parents and siblings shared memories of his childhood, recalling his early love of football before he turned to music. They remembered his laugh, his determination, and his dreams of lifting his family out of hardship through his rap career. To them, he wasn't just Wham Spin the Ben, he was Brandon, the son and brother they would never see again. The broader rap community also reacted. Tributes poured in from fellow Florida artists, with some using their platforms to call for an end to the cycles of violence that had claimed so many young talents. Fans flooded social media with messages of remembrance, sharing his tracks and vowing to keep his music alive. Yet not all reactions were solemn. Some of Brandon's so-called enemies took to Instagram to make posts that bordered on celebratory, highlighting the divisions that often plague the rap scene. For supporters of Brandon, this added insult to tragedy. It was a reminder of how deeply entrenched rivalries and grudges could run even after death. Community activists in Broward County used the moment to highlight the dangers faced by young men navigating both fame and street life. They pointed out that Brandon's death was not an isolated case, but part of a disturbing pattern across the state and the country. Brandon's funeral was held in South Florida, drawing hundreds of mourners. Family, friends, and fans gathered to pay their respects. The atmosphere was heavy with grief, but also filled with tributes to his life and career. Attendees wore shirts with his name and lyrics, and his music played softly in the background as loved ones spoke about his legacy. Some described him as a young man who had faced enormous challenges but was fighting to change. Others focused on his artistry, remembering his raw storytelling and the authenticity he brought to his craft. Candles, flowers, and photos surrounded his casket. Supporters held balloons released into the sky as a symbol of farewell, a gesture often seen in communities mourning victims of gun violence. The mood was one of sorrow, but also resilience. Even as tears flowed, there was a determination among those gathered to keep Brandon's memory alive through his music and the stories told about his journey. Brandon's death left behind more than grief. It left behind questions that still linger. For viewers, Brandon's stories is a sobering reminder that tomorrow is never promised. He was a young man who publicly acknowledged his struggles with addiction, who overdosed but came back, and who decided to give his life to God and push towards sobriety.
I feel like I was taking stuff for granted before. Like now I take everything a blessing. Like, you feel me? Ain't nothing like guaranteed. So like everything you gotta take with a grain of salt. Like you gotta walk light. Feel me?
He was working towards a brighter future, only to have it stolen in an act of violence that came from within his own circle. If there is any advice to take from this case, it is to recognize the importance of conflict resolution and seeking help when anger or disputes rise. Walking away can save lives. Turning to counseling, community programs, or even faith, as Brandon did, can provide strength in moments of weakness. And for those struggling with grief or substance abuse, Brandon's words still resonate. Do not turn to drugs for comfort. Find healthier paths. Seek support. Talk to God, talk to loved ones, or talk to professionals who can help. Let us know what you think in the comments section below.